All right, good morning, everybody. This is James Morris. This is Wednesday morning's edition of Ask the Master Oil Technician. I've had some calls about different types of fuel to use in cars, some of the things we've seen, some of the things that happens. We've talked about it a lot, how ethanol fuel versus non-ethanol fuel has more, the non-ethanol fuel has more heat, more energy, better fuel mileage than ethanol fuel of 10% or 15%. There's some people out there that are wanting some states are talking about going to 15% ethanol, and I think that's wonderful. We should go to 20% ethanol. That way I'll have more work to do than I can possibly imagine. I'm being sarcastic right now, or facetious I should say, because ethanol actually does a lot of damage. Alcohol itself is a wonderful solvent. It does a great job of cleaning things, and it does exactly that. You have anything that's inside your gas tank or whatever that it will be dissolved and put into your gasoline and filtered and injected to the engine. It does things that, well, if your car wasn't designed for ethanol fuel, like it wasn't a 2008 or newer, it wasn't designed for ethanol fuel. Ethanol fuel wasn't mandated to 2008 in cars, and that's where they started making sure that all states had ethanol fuel and they wanted to put it in cars, and the cars themselves were designed for ethanol fuel. But originally they were designed to run regular fuel, non-ethanol fuel, and that's how you get your better gas mileage. You actually have more heat, and I want to say that it's roughly about a 10% decrease in fuel mileage between non-ethanol fuel and ethanol fuel. Now here's the drawback. Non-ethanol fuel does not have scavenging agents and detergents in it because, well, they just don't do it. It's done when they take it and they bring it to you and they mix it and put it in the ground in the tanks. That's where they put all the goodies in the gasoline. All gasoline starts out the same here at the fuel depot. It all starts out the same as far as regular and high test. There's no mid-range fuel. That's mixed at the station. You have regular 87 and you have 92, or 91. I think it's 91. 91 is your high test, and you have those two, and then they're taken to the stations where the alcohol is added to, ethanol is added to it, and the additives such as the Techron or the scavenging agents that are found in fuel is added. That's why you pay more one station, and then right across the street, different station, maybe not name brand. You may have a mom and pop store on one corner and a Shell on the other, and the Shell may be 6 cents, 5 cents more a gallon. And you go, well, how can they sell that? Well, there's a big reason they can sell that, because that fuel has scavenging agents in it, and if you're not using those scavenging agents in fuel, especially ethanol-enriched fuel or any fuel whatsoever, it causes carbon buildup on the back of the intake valves. Boy, does it cause carbon intake deposits on the back of the intake valves. And it's not as... I'm going to tell you it's not as severe on cars that have the injectors are spraying on the back of the intake valve. That's not so bad. The problem is mainly on direct injection engines. And I want to say direct injection engines became mainstream just about on every engine 2014, 2015, that area. We're seeing 2014, 2015 Ford trucks, Chevrolet trucks coming in with direct injection engines. I'm going, whoo, they did put a 5.4 together with direct injection engine. I'm impressed. They did. Same thing with 5.3 on General Motors, direct injection engine. And the repair is not to sit there and you change spark plugs when they start misfiring or change coils. That's not the problem. The problem is to clean the intake valve deposits. Now, these intake valve deposits could be avoided by people changing their oil at the right intervals and using the right kind of oil. That's the big thing right there. People use the wrong kind of oil, and they don't change it often enough, and they don't use top-tier gasoline. Top-tier gasoline is ethanol fuel, of course, but it's got detergent additives added to it for scavenging agents to keep the deposits from collecting on the back of the valves or on the top of the piston. And those scavenging agents are what they do. They actually they don't leave carbon deposits. That's the thing that we're trying to avoid. What causes the misfire is carbon deposits on the back of the intake valve. And you say, well, What causes that? Well, remember, on a direct injection engine, it's like a diesel. You've got an injector right in the middle of the combustion chamber squirting fuel at high pressure, just like a diesel engine. So there's no gasoline going on the back of the intake valve like most engines over the years have been made with fuel injection. Either they were multi-port or sequential. And what happens is when it sparked, it threw half the amount of fuel it needed, or it threw all the amount of fuel it needed, depending on what kind of system it had, on the back of the intake valve, keeping it clean. And that doesn't happen with direct injection. Those valves what happens is on the compression stroke, when it starts to go down and it goes out, when it starts to come up, the intake valve and the exhaust valve are slightly open at the same time, creating more hot exhaust gases to go back on the intake valve just for a split second. And that's what we call valve overlap, allowing it to breathe easier and to get better fuel mileage. Honest to goodness, that's how it works. Anyway, we're going to switch gears right here, and we're going to go to a 2005 Silverado with Wayne. Wayne, what's your question about your Silverado, sir?
I've got a 2005 Silverado, and a year ago, it has the oxygen sensors replaced, and about 6 months later, they went bad. I had 2 more put in, and my engine light keeps coming on, and it seems like my catalytic converter went bad.
Yeah. This almost sounds like something's been, as they say in the South, something's been poisoned. Something's been poisoned. I'm not trying to be flippant, but oxygen sensors don't fail like that. I mean, they don't fail, and 6 months later they go bad. Silicon contamination will do a number on them, and it will take out catalytic converters and O2 sensors. You can look at the oxygen sensors when you pull them out. If they look like they have like they're white, like they're almost snowy white, that's silicon contamination. Now, I don't know if that's your problem or not, but what you say your cats are bad. Are you getting PO420, PO430? Is that what you're getting, those codes?
I don't know what kind of code it's getting.
Well, what makes you think the catalytic converter is bad? That's my question.
Well, yeah, it was the metal. I was told that the little piece of
inside the cat, that block.
Yeah, the little piece inside it went bad, but I don't hear it rattling anymore, so I don't know if
that might.
I don't know if it melted down and it's just kind of.
It may be in a jam, and maybe I don't know. Is there a check engine light on your car?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what you need to do first off is if you're in the Panama City area, you can come by here and I'll grab my scanner. We'll walk outside. I'll take a look at it. I'll give you an idea how much I think it's going to take to figure your problem out and go from there. And that doesn't cost you anything. But if you're not in the Panama City area, you might want to find a shop that will actually see what you've got on there. You don't know what codes you do have, because that's very, very important to point me in the right direction. Just give me a hint. If I know what code you're having, a lot of times we see certain failures. We'll see this code and this code together, and we go, I know what that is, because to make that happen, this has to happen. But normally on the that Silverado, yours is a V8, 350 in it, 5.3. These are great engines. The biggest thing I see wrong with them are people not changing their oil often enough.
I change my oil with synthetic oil
even better
all the
time. That's the biggest thing I see. Wiping out the camshafts. That's the biggest thing I see. But other than that, they're really good. I don't know. I really don't. Like I said, do you live in the Panama City area, or if you're
in Bonifay?
You're in Bonifay. Well, you're a long way away. Find a shop that can at least get you the codes. You can go by a parts store a lot of times, and they'll read the codes for you. But they're going to try to sell you oxygen sensors and things that the codes mean. That doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. If you'll get those codes and call me back tomorrow or sometime, I'll kind of give you an idea. I'll go to Identifix Direct Hit. I'll type in your codes and your make, model, year of car, and it'll say these are the common areas that we found that cause this problem, and then we can kind of narrow it down to what tests we need to do. And that can kind of give you an idea of what you need to do up in Bonifay, because that's an hour drive from here. So that's about the best advice I can give, Wayne, since you're an hour drive away. But normally oxygen sensors will last for the life of a car, 100,000 miles, and catalytic converters will last the life of a car, which can be 500,000 miles if you take care of things. But I just don't know what your problem is, but let's get.
Somebody told me that either gas, oil, or water is what makes the catalytic converter go bad. Well,
that's a good.
And so, like you were just saying, one of those things must be leaking into there.
Well, if you have coolant leaking into your catalytic converter through a blown head gasket, you betcha that'll poison your catalytic converter. That will do that. The wrong oil that you're running in your car, if you're running, say, oil that's made for a diesel engine that's got a lot of zinc in it, that can ruin a catalytic converter. What's the other things that can ruin a catalytic converter? Like I said, mainly being poisoned. That's usually what kills them, being poisoned by a blown head gasket.
Fuel pumps.
A fuel pump going bad. Thank you, Anna Marie. A fuel pump going bad, losing fuel pressure. It gets real hot, it doesn't have any fuel, and all of a sudden the fuel pump kicks back on again. Now we get fuel to a real hot cat, and that superheats it from 1,100 degrees to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you get a chicken McNugget in your catalytic converter. It becomes a big fused glob down there. I'm not saying that's what happened to yours, and that might be why yours isn't rattling anymore. It might have fused together. I don't. Do you have any power? Have you lost power?
No, I don't have no lost power. I kick it, it'll go.
Yeah, then you don't have that. It's not clogged down there.
No, it's not doing that.
But give me the codes. Give me the codes if you can. Say, hey, this is the code I got. I got a PO420 or whatever I got. And then I'll sit there and I'll type it out, and while you wait, I'll say, okay, these are the areas you need to check up in Bonifay, and maybe I can direct you to a shop that you can help them answer your questions, Wayne.
Can I ask you one
Sure,
other question?
Go ahead. That's what I'm here for.
Car. He has a 96 Mercury.
Yeah.
Got a cracked block.
Ooh.
And he told me, someone told him to put an egg and pepper in it to stop it.
Yeah.
And it did stop it for about a week.
Yeah.
Then it didn't work.
Yeah, it's biodegradable.
So I thought he should have put another egg in there.
Well, what it is that's biodegradable. That'll get you out of a jam. And those are things we did years and years ago when we had crack. That's what we did. Now, if this is an external crack block, I don't know how it is. Now, back in the 80s.
External goes down to the fuel pump.
Down 90. Now, this is a 99. It doesn't have a
97.
Does it have a mechanical fuel pump on it?
I don't know.
I don't think it does. It's fuel injected. But anyway, if you can see the crack, and is it water leaking out of it? That's what's leaking out is water. It's leaking. If it's leaking water, it's probably what he did, put egg and pepper in the radiator. I would recommend, if anything, clean that out if you can, that egg and that pepper out, and wash that out. And if he's going to try anything, put in ceramic stop leak. That stuff will work. Ceramic stop leak, if it's not too wide a crack, too big a crack, it will stop a leak permanently. It really will. It will do a good job. I'm sitting here drooling all over myself this morning, but yeah, it will. It does a really good job. But ceramic stop leak, you can buy it. Costs about $10 or $15 a bottle. If you follow the instructions exactly and not have any antifreeze in there and do it like it's supposed to, it will work. I did that back in '82 when we had a real cold winter, about December 22nd, 23rd, 24th. It got down real cold in '82. Blocks cracked left and right here in Bay County, and I was tapping them back together, the little cracks, putting JB Weld to hold it back in place, and then putting ceramic stop leak on it. And some of those cars ran for another 10, 15 years after I did that. So I'm just telling you, it will work. I don't know how bad the crack is, but if he can do something like put JB Weld on the crack to kind of slow the crack water from leaking out, and then put in ceramic stop leak, that will work. It really, really will. I've fixed a lot of cars over the years that have had crack blocks, freeze plugs that have just completely, they were paper thin and seeping, and put ceramic stop leak in it and solve the problem where the customer could drive it another 5, 10 years.
Where would you buy this?
You can buy that ceramic stop leak at any auto parts store.
Auto parts.
Okay, I got to go. I'm against the clock. Talk to you later, Wayne. Thanks
for
calling.
Thank you. Enjoy your show.
I'm glad you do, Wayne. Talk to you. Bye-bye now.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone.
comes to router plumbing, sink, shower and toilet emergency drain services.
All right, welcome back to this is our second part of our show on Wednesday morning. So they were talking yesterday about my show. I was talking about fuel trims, short-term and long-term fuel trims. And someone said, try saying short-term, long-term fuel trims real fast. I said, man, I tried doing that early in the morning, and I trip over my tongue all the time. And sometimes I get them backwards. But the thing we try to let people know is how they can get better fuel mileage, how they can get better performance, how they can get more life out of their second most expensive investment they got, their automobile. And really, I can't really say a car is an investment. It really isn't, not unless it's some sort of collectible that gains value, because an investment is something that gains in value. Cars don't gain in value. If you buy a $50,000 car, you sign your name on it, it appreciates 20% when you sign your name on it. Boom. It just lost 20% of value just when you sign your name on it. Now imagine how much value it loses over 2 or 3 years. More than 50% of the value of the car is lost. So that's not an investment. But you still want to take care of it because you can drive this car long after it's paid for. Maybe you got a 5, 6, 7 year loan. I really didn't know there was that many years on car loans. Just someone the other day said, yeah, they got 7-year car loans out there. I said, man, I didn't think there was more than a 3-year car loan. I don't buy cars on payment. I mean, I buy a used car, I fix it up, whatever. I drive a car, I pay cash for it. I didn't know car loans were that long, but 7 years is a long time to pay on a car. And too many people buy a car, they're in love with it. Yeah, they love it. But after the first couple of years on it, they start realizing they've got to do maintenance on it. And this maintenance isn't as cheap as the older car they used to have. Say they used to have a car that they had to change the transmission fluid in it. And the transmission fluid was just Dexron 6, Dex 6, not a big deal. Well, now they got a car that requires special $20 to $40 a quart fluid. CVT transmissions out there. They got them. Those CVT transmissions, not all of them, but some of them require special fluid. What was it? We had a 6-speed Mini. 6-speed Mini Cooper. It takes special BMW fluid. Might cost $28 a quart. Yeah, it takes 6 quarts. Now, that may not sound expensive to you, but you start adding that up, that gets rather multiplied. Let's say 6 times 3. Just that gives you an idea. There's $180 approximately just for 6 quarts of fluid. Yeah. Didn't you? Yeah, you could almost get a transmission service done complete, parts and labor, with what it costs to buy 6 quarts of fluid from another car that didn't require that, such as if it just took Mercron, LV or whatever. There's lots of different fluids out there, but the newer cars require special fluids. And when I say newer cars, I venture to say starting in the 90s. Fluids started changing. We went from 10W30 that was in most cars, General Motors cars and Fords, and they dropped it down, and by 92 to 5W30. People were going, oh my Lord, why are they doing that? Well, they found out it wasn't lubricating good enough. It wasn't doing the job it was supposed to do. So they dropped the weight from 10W, which is a 10 weight in the winter time when it's cold, to a 5W, which is a 5 weight in the winter time. But they kept a 30 weight in there. So 5W30, so it was able to pump faster and lubricate faster. That way those Ford engines would quit burning the valve guide seals up. And that's why they were smoking when they come to a red light. They'd come to a red light and stop and then take off, a big cloud of blue smoke would come up. And they found out, well, that's what was causing it, because we were putting in 10W30 and it wasn't pumping fast enough. It was cold. And so the valve guide seals actually worked for maybe 10, 15 seconds without any lubrication. Well, you do that enough times and you're going to ruin your valve guide seals. And that will cause it to suck oil, and the next thing you know, you got a big bill, it get fixed, or you're putting in a quart of oil every time you fill up with gas. That's a very common problem on 4.6 engines. It was a common problem, not as common now because we went to not 530, we went to a 520 oil. They actually found out that engine ran better on 520 than it did on 530 because it was able to pump fast enough to lubricate the timing chains. Yes, that car has 1, 2, 3 timing chains on it. And they get rather expensive to change. It's not uncommon to spend $3,500 to $4,000 to take care of timing chains on a vehicle. I've got one and it's more than timing chains. Please, when I say timing chains, I don't mean just the chain. We're talking about the variable valve timing gears that are mechanically oil operated. They're not cheap either. They're very precise, very precision. And we see that on just about every car out there. I mean, I got a car right now, a V8 350 5.7 Toyota Tundra, that's got problems. It's got good oil pressure. The engine was just recently put in by someone. It's a used engine. They're complaining about misfires and poor performance and bucking and spitting. And they said, you got a scope? I said, sure, I got a scope. And he said, can you check the car out? Well, the first thing I did when I got the codes and looked at it and saw what was going on, I didn't need a scope. I needed an oil pressure test. I tested out the oil pressure. I said, well, I got good oil pressure. That's a great sign. Man, I'm going, because you got to have oil pressure to make this work. If you don't have oil pressure, it don't work. Anyway, so we saw this was a used engine and that was installed in there from a salvage yard. And I said, well, this is what's going to take is on the timing chains, you got on each bank, on the right and left bank, you've got variable valve timing that's controlled by oil pressure. Well, the solenoids are working. We can make them work and we can make it control the solenoid and do like it's supposed to. And so we know they're capable of responding. The problem we got is the chain itself is just slightly, there's enough play in there in this engine to cause it to say, I ain't gonna work, I got a problem, and it starts misfiring, bucking, spitting, setting the dreaded P00 codes. Anytime you get a code P0012, 16, 18, 12, 22, 24, it means it's anything but electrical. That means it's a mechanical issue. And it's not me that says that. It's the people that design these cars. They designed it, when you get a P00, whatever it is, you got something that's NQR, not quite right. That's right, it's broken. Well, not necessarily broken, but stretched out or wore out. Tensioners, guides, those things wear out. The variable valve timing gear, it can go bad too. It can wear out too. And 99% of this problem is by people not using the right oil. Honest to goodness, folks, pay the extra money for good oil. Get it changed every 5,000 to 6,000 miles and get the filter changed. Use the best filter you can, the best oil. And you won't be paying someone $3,000 to $5,000 to pull your engine apart and fix it. But people will be penny wise and pound foolish and pay $19.95 for an oil change at Wally World, where the right oil change you need for the car is probably going to cost them about $100 because it's going to be full synthetic and good filter and all that, and they won't do that. It's too much money for it. Well, by the time they get 100,000 miles, they're trading this car in, and they still got 2 more years to pay on it. That's what I see all the time. You've had your car 5 years, you got 2 more years to pay on it, you got about 100,000 miles on it, maybe a little less. Timing chains are bad, catalytic converters are bad, so many things are bad on it, and 90% of it is because someone just thought, well, you know, we don't need that type gas. Oh, we don't need that expensive oil. We don't need that we don't need that type antifreeze. We can get by with that old green antifreeze. I love it when people tell me that. I just smile real big at them and nod at them. Okay, fine, go ahead and do that. And normally I'll see them in 6 months to a year with a bad water pump or blown head gasket or both. Because water pumps are not designed for just any particular antifreeze. They're designed for a certain antifreeze. If you've got a Honda, if you don't put Honda antifreeze in it, bye-bye water pump. Maybe not today, not tomorrow, but it will go. It's just a matter of time. It just works that way. And Honda water pumps are not easy to change on some of them. But anyway, that's just another, I'm just letting you know. It's not me that says this. It's the Society of Automotive Engineers, SAE. That's the same things you see on the back of your oil cans out there. American Petroleum Institute, API, and then SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, who make that little donut that goes on the back that says energy conserving 2. That's the type oil you need to be using in your car. If you don't see energy conserving 2 on it, don't even think about putting it in your car if it's built after 96. Don't even think about it. I know, people do it anyway. I see people all the time. I had a guy come in, cost him a lesson, cost him over $2,000 because he was running Mobil 1, found a good deal on full synthetic oil, but it wasn't Mobil 1 and it wasn't full synthetic. It just happened to be Supreme Court authorized full for only $2.50 a quart. He ran that about 15 to 20,000 miles, or about 4 oil changes. And then he had put a timing chain in it. I told him, I said, didn't we put a timing chain on this thing 200,000 miles ago? And he said, yeah, we did. And it was working great till about till I started changing my oil. And I said, well, you've been using Mobil 1. I don't know how it's wore out. He said, I'm not using Mobil 1. I went to this different XYZ brand. That was a great deal, and I'm paying dearly for it now. And he said, my gas mileage dropped almost immediately when I started using this oil, even though it said it was full synthetic. And in just a matter of a few weeks, I started developing a rattle in my timing chain. And I said, yep, it just doesn't do the job that full synthetic, molecule by molecule, made in a test tube, does. A much better job than oil that comes out of the ground, that's been hydrocracked, has additives added to it, been synthesized, and now called full synthetic, is not the same as full synthetic, molecule by molecule, made in a test tube. That's full synthetic. Synthesized oil is what American Petroleum Institute and automotive engineers call oil that comes out of the ground, synthesized oil, not full synthetic. But you can't argue with lawyers. They in Supreme Court, they've made that call, and that's the choice that we're going to have to live with it. But you need to know there is a difference. There's a big difference between the oils you buy out there. Just because it says full synthetic doesn't really mean it is. So kind of let the buyer be. What is it? Caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. Well, I want you to be aware of what you're buying. When it says full synthetic oil, buy the best or just don't buy it. The only 3 oils I know out there that that are fantastic molecule by molecule, it is not Dexos 2 approved oil. It's not Ford Motorcraft oil. It's Mobil 1 and Amsoil and Redline. I know you may have never heard of Redline. I never heard of Redline either until a few years ago, but I'm letting you know that's a race oil out there that's molecule by molecule made in a test tube. Royal Purple's not made in a test tube. It's a lot of people think it is. It's not. It's what we call synthesized oil. Same thing with Quaker State, full synthetic. Same thing with Kindle. Same thing with all the rest of them out there. It's I don't care what it is. If it's not Mobil 1 or Amsoil or Redline, it's synthesized oil. Now, don't get me wrong. It's good oil. But it's not the oil that's made in a test tube, molecule by molecule. I'm serious. That oil is head and shoulders. If you saw what I've seen over the years with people that use this oil, this full synthetic by Supreme Court, versus who uses this oil that's just full synthetic by the American Petroleum Institute, made molecule by molecule, I've seen Mobil 1 head running up against, say, Quaker State or Kindle full synthetic, and there will be sludge in an engine that runs that. I see it all the time on people that run Kindle in their BMWs. Why they go 10,000 miles between oil changes, it's like a death wish. I see it. I pull valve covers off and just stuck them right back together again. So there's not a dadgum thing I can do for this engine. If I touch it, it's gonna self-destruct. I can just leave it alone. I can't do anything. That's how bad. I've seen them that bad out there. So if you want to use the best oil and you want to get the best mileage, you'll have a car that lasts forever and ever and ever, well, till you wear the seats out. But yeah, just, oils are much cheaper than metal. Remember that. That's just something that, it's a heck of a lot cheaper to change the fluids more often than it is to change engines or rear ends or transmissions or all those things. And preventive maintenance goes a long, long way to making cars last long after you pay for them. If you got to make a car payments for 7 years, you'd like to be able to drive it for another 7 years without having to make a car payment. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, you can't.